So now we just finished talking about basic confidentiality using simple Caesar cipher, and we'll get better before we'll be more sophisticated than that because Caesar ciphers are trivially breakable, obviously. But now we're going to switch from confidentiality to integrity, and we're worried about the message. Just to review, confidentiality means we're hiding information. We just don't want Eve to see it because Eve sees the ciphertext, and we want her to never be able to extract the plain text. And as we saw in the last lecture, if I'm just using a Caesar cipher, I mean, there was little or nothing I could do to stop you from doing it. All you'd do is enough work, and you would figure out the shift, and then you'd have everything. So it would take you, you'd write a program, it would take you like 1,000th of a second to check all possible things, and you're done. So that's confidentiality. Now we're going to talk about integrity, right? And we're going to kind of assume confidentiality, or perhaps assume it's not necessary because we're transporting it in a locked box or in a whatever. But let's just say I had some piece of paper, right? And you'd wanted to know if this piece of paper really came from me. Well, we would use things like a signature, right? Or we would use a bit of wax where we would push our seal on it, and the seal only belonged to us. But really, signatures can be forged. People can steal the wax imprint thing. I mean, in Roman times, they would wear it around their neck to make sure that no one stole it. But you could also just create a fake one, so you could seal your letter with the wax. And you break the wax seal. But in the computer world, we need something, right? We need a situation where perhaps, my wife had to get a prescription, and they sent her an email with a prescription in it. And this prescription had on the end of it a digital signature. It was just a bunch of numbers. And you think to yourself, wow, here's this prescription, and at the end it just has a bunch of numbers, and that's the digital signature from the doctor. And how does that work? Well, it works surprisingly well. And that message can be forwarded. She can print it out. She can scan it. She can send it to a pharmacist via email. And as long as that signature's in there, we can know that the data originally came from the doctor, and that no one modified it to be a different kind of prescription, like a different amount or a different drug, and that would invalidate the signature. And how exactly is that done? Well, it's done using a technique called cryptographic hashing. And it is a bit of computer software, a bit of code, that takes a large amount of text and reduces it down to some small set of numbers, a large block of data to a fixed length set of numbers. And the message is the big thing, and the digest is the little thing. It's like it digests it and sort of gives you this little tiny thing. Now, the key is there are many different techniques to map from a message to the hash or the digest. And some are better than others. And it turns out that there is a long-term whole field of mathematics and computer science that's dedicated to understanding what a good cryptographic hash might be. And so there are these well-known cryptographic hashes that you may have heard of, like SHA-1 or MD5. Each of those is the result of many, many years of research of thinking through what a good cryptographic hash is. So, for example, one cryptographic hash might be, I sign it with the number of characters in the message. That would be something that says, like, well, at least they didn't expand or contract the number of characters in the message. But then at some point that would be such an obvious thing that you would change the signature as well. So you want to make it so you can't change the message and change the signature, because then you're sort of properly forging a signature. So the hash function that takes the message to create the digest, that's something that is a scientific, mathematical research effort to get the thing right. Okay? So here is an example of a hash function. Now, this hash function takes as message input on one side, right? It takes message input and this can be short, medium, or extremely long messages. And the digest is always a fixed size. It's always a fixed size, right? Some get longer than others. Different message hashing functions give different length, but they're all fixed. And they're fixed even if the input is megabytes. It can be megabytes, hundreds of megabytes. and you can still run all that through the hash function and get a digest. Okay, and so the key thing is to make it so that for any change in the input, the digest also changes. Okay, and so here we have the red fox jumps over the blue dog, right? And that's the hash that comes out. And if we change one letter, you know, the V to a U, the hash changes dramatically. So this hash changes dramatically. So this suggests this is a good cryptographic hash function, right? The length didn't change, all the characters are the same, but one character changed and the hash function changes completely, okay? And here is another flipping of characters, right? Where the from here to here, let's give you a better color here. Which color is that? Yeah. From here to here, the V and the E were just toggled. And yet, from here to here, the hash function is completely different. And so the hash function needs to generate quite different hashes, even with tiny perturbations of the input. You're not even allowed to change one character or add and remove character. And they know when a cryptographic hash function is bad if they can take two different messages and send it through and get the same digest. And so there's a lot of research to try to, as soon as they come up with one of these things, there is a massive amount of research to try to disprove it, to say that's a bad one. And the bad one is if two different messages come in and they come out with the same hash function, then that's bad, because it means that it's provably that the signature could use, the same signature can be used to sign two different input messages. Okay, so this hash function is a bit of computer code, right? And you know, SHA-1, you can go look on Wikipedia for SHA-1 or MD5. These are kind of classic hash functions. And when you read the SHA-1 or MD5 Wikipedia, they'll talk about the fact that it's been decided it's kind of flawed. And so there's like SHA-1, don't use it, it's not cool. Now you can use it for less critical things. You just have to be aware of what its limitations are. So like SHA-256 is better than SHA-1. So what happens is there's continuous research and there's continuous improvement in the mathematics of these hashing functions. And they're getting really good at it because we've been using these things for a very, very, very long time. Now if you want to play, whoa, let me clear this up. So I've got a simple SHA-1 calculator, and you'll be using this in the homework. The SHA-1 calculator takes as input some kind of a plain text, and it produces output when you hit the thing. So you can you put in Pony or Fluffy or whatever, or even a whole bunch of stuff, and it produces a SHA-1. Okay, so so basically, get ready to use this because the next upcoming exercises are going to use this. And you can read SHA-1 about SHA-1 on Wikipedia, and you can find out, like, yeah, it's seen as less than perfect, and you should use SHA-256 or whatever. But actually, lots of applications in less than critical situations know that, you know, for short and reasonably length strings, you know, the flaws are mathematically found, but they're not commonly run into. And so SHA-1 is not horrible. It's just been proven sort of less than ideal. And so for highly sensitive information, you would never use SHA-1. But for simple things, SHA-1 and even things like MD5 are commonly used, like for hashing passwords. So, no hashing passwords. So, the first application of this that we're going to talk about is hashing passwords. So, you go to a new site, even Coursera.org, and it asks you to create an account and create a password. Now, you're not supposed to, but lots of people use the same password for lots of systems. And so if your Coursera password were somehow mistakenly revealed, they might get your LinkedIn password as well. And so it is considered very bad form, very, very bad form, to actually ever store your password in the Coursera database in plain text. Because if the database was somehow compromised, then all the bad guys would get all of the plain text passwords and, again, maybe use them not just on Coursera, because you could change your password on Coursera, but use them on LinkedIn and Twitter and whatever, and YouTube, and steal all your accounts by compromising one account because you made the mistake that lots of people do of using the same password in a lot of different places because we're tired of making up a new password for each place. So you're not allowed to store the plain text password in the database. That's bad practice, and we don't want to do that. So the best practice is to store a hashed version of it. Take the plain text of the password when you're creating your account, run a cryptographic hash on it, store the cryptographic hash, and then when you log in next, you present to the system your plain text password, and it runs your presented password through a cryptographic hash, same cryptographic hash, and then compares it with the hashed password in the database. If they match, you must have presented the same plain text both times. This is a way that they can verify that you've represented the same plain text again without them ever storing the plain text. Okay? That's why a respectable system will never send you your password. I've almost started doing this where as soon as I go to a new system and I set my password, I set it to crap, and then I have them send me a message to reset my password. And if they send me the actual plain text of the password, it's like, and I use some crap password. I've actually got to the point where I'm tired of reusing my passwords, and my technique, I don't know if it's a good one or bad one, is I just put crap in for my password, and then every time I use a system, I have it send me a new password or reset the password. I mean, I really think we should just change it so that when you log in, it just comes to your email and you click a link. I don't know. I'm not an expert on this stuff, But a respectable computing system will never, ever, ever send you your plain text password because they don't possess it. And they can't derive it. These cryptographic hashes are not backwards. You can't make them go backwards. Let's go back here. They're only a one-way hash because this might be 1 megabyte of data, and this might be, well, let's see, 4 times, this is 40 characters. 40 characters of data, 1 megabyte squeezes down to 40 characters. There is no way to go backwards. The information is lost. The hash is, distinct and unique, right? But you cannot go backwards. It's a one-way operation. You can go from the plain text to the hash, but you can't go from the hash to the plain text, which is very different than encryption and decryption, right? In decryption, you had to be able to pull the plain text back out from the encrypted text. This is not encryption. This is calculating a special digest that is uniquely connected to the plain text message, but you need to run the plain text through the hash again and then compare. Okay? So let's do some homework. Well, so no, let me first show you how this works in the hash passwords. So let's say, for example, you're logging into Coursera.org and creating your profile for the first time, and it says, please give me your password. And you choose a singularly bad password as Fluffy. Okay, so Fluffy, and you can go type Fluffy into drchuck.com/SHA1.php in another window. If you type Fluffy and you encrypt it with SHA-1, you get this as the hash password. And then this is what they store in Coursera's database. And so that is, they don't know, they never store Fluffy. They would not do that. That would be so bad if they did that. So they store this, and if I get this, it's very difficult to reverse engineer it to Fluffy. It also is even harder if you make your password long. The best passwords are like sentences, not just 8 characters, but they're like long sentences of stuff that's rather difficult to predict. So this is what's stored in the Coursera databases. Some ugly string, which is a cryptographic hash digest of your password. So now you log out, and this is gone. That's only in your mind. And this is sitting in the database. So you log back into Coursera, and you forget your password, so you type in Pony. If you run Pony through SHA-1, you get this as the cryptographic hash of the word pony. And you look and you compare, and you go, nope, that is not the right password. I don't know what the right password is. I can't give you a hint. I can't tell you, hey, you put shift on your password. Why don't you try taking that off? You seem to have caps lock on, because it doesn't know what your password is. But it does know that pony is not your password. Then what it does, right, so this is what's stored in the database. Then you go, oh, my secretary, that's right, I use Fluffy for my password on Coursera. So then Coursera runs that through SHA-1. It gets the cryptographic hash of the plain text that you entered, and then it compares it to what it has stored as the as your hashed password, and it matches. So then it says, yay, I'll let you back in. The Fluffy only existed in your mind, unless you foolishly wrote it on a Post-it note and stuck it up on your computer, which you shouldn't do as well. But whatever it was, Coursera never stored it. Right? Coursera never stored it. Coursera only stored this. And that, again, is why Coursera can never tell you what your password is, or any reasonable site can never tell you what your password is. It can only tell you, it can only let you change it again, which is easy. Changing it again, it decides, it sends you mail, you give it a new password, and it recomputes a SHA-1 for that one, and stores that SHA-1. So that's why you have to get password resets to happen. Okay? Okay, so the next thing that I want to talk about is I want to talk about digital signatures, how we can use this for message integrity. So we've got the notion of a cryptographic hash, which is a calculation that takes a large block of text. So far, we've only used it on small blocks of text. Okay? But now we're going to use it on larger blocks of text, where we're going to ensure message integrity, which means we're going to figure out if this message actually came from the person we think that it came from. Okay, so we're going to use integrity now. I mean, in a sense, what the system was doing when you were typing in a password was it was ensuring that you were really the person on the other end of the line, right? Hi, I'm logging in as Dr. Chuck, and here's my password, Fluffy. That's by giving you the password, I'm proving that to Coursera that I'm really Dr. Chuck. So it's a form of integrity, right? Identification is a form of integrity, right? It's no different than showing your driver's license. It says, yes, this is really me. Okay, but now we're going to do it in a way that we're going to send a message. So it's not just a password. We're not really solving just the password problem, but we're actually going to use it to make sure that the message A came from the right person and B was not modified in transit. This is kind of the doctor signing the prescription digitally and then sending you an email with your prescription that you can just print the email and take it to your pharmacist. So again, message integrity. When you get a message, did it come from? Who did it come from? And did it come from who you really thought it came from, or was it altered in transit? Okay, so if you go back to our little example from the Christmas story, the message from Annie was eat more Ovaltine. Now the question really becomes, did it really come from Annie? Right? Because little orphan Annie didn't necessarily say it. Little orphan Annie handed the message to somebody else, and then they read it. So did that person change the message? Because maybe there was actually a secret message from Annie, and maybe Annie wrote it, and it really was an important secret message, but then somebody like the advertiser changed it and sent it to you as if Annie came from Annie. So we're not really worried so much now about the plain text, that is the fine plain text. The question is, did it really come from little orphan Annie? Because we are receiving this from an insecure medium. Like Annie is out here somewhere, but Annie handed it to somebody, hand it to somebody, send it across radio, yada, yada, yada. The question is, did the message originally come from Annie long, long ago, handed through many people, or not? This is again like the seal that you put on with the wax. Did it really come from that person or not? Is it really Annie? Just saying, yeah, this is Annie, that's too easy. You could say eat less Ovaltine, or maybe Annie wanted to say I hate Ovaltine, right? That's maybe but we don't know if Annie said eat more Ovaltine or not, right? Because all we saw was eat more Ovaltine, and it seemed to come from Annie. But we got to know. We got to know that it came from Annie or not. Okay. So, simple message signing using shared secret, and we'll move to a better technique later, but we're going to start with a simple technique of shared secret, is that we have a shared secret that we're going to use for message signing. It'll probably be different than the encryption secret, okay? So now we get together with Annie in a shared room, and she tells us what the shift is going to be, and then she tells us what our shared signature secret is going to be, and then we separate. So the technique that you do is before we send the message, we concatenate the secret to the message, right? So eat more Ovaltine, and then put the secret on the end of the message. And then you compute the digest of the message plus the secret concatenated together. Then you remove the secret from the message, and then you send the message plus the digest across the insecure. And in my wife's example, this was the little signature numbers that came from her doctor, was the digest. But it was the digest not just of the message, but of the message plus the secret. The secret didn't come across. The message plus the digest came across. So let's look at this when we look at when we receive a message. So we receive a message and we see a digest at the end of the message, and it's across an insecure transport. So we take the digest off the message, and we add the secret back on the message. We know the secret, Annie knows the secret, but the people in the middle who transported the message do not know the secret. So it's finally arrived in our location. We see the digest, we pull that off and hold on to it. We add the secret to it. We can take the concatenated message plus secret, we run it through SHA-1, we get a digest locally, and then we compare that digest to the received digest. And the only way to make the digest match is to know the secret. Now, maybe somebody made Annie tell them the secret, which means they could forge the messages. But if the secret is not been compromised somehow, their only way to create the digest is to know the secret, right? And so we can compare the received digest to the known the known digest that we compute on our end in a secure way, because we and Annie are the only ones in possession of the secret. So here we go. So you can play with this on SHA-1.php, Dr. Chuck. And so if the message is that Annie wants us to send, or Annie wants us to get, is eat more Ovaltine, and the secret is Santa. So what you do is you take the message, concatenate the secret, and then run that through SHA-1. This is all happening in Annie's secure room, and she comes up with a digest. Now it's longer than this, but that's just the first 6 characters of it. And then what she does is she removes the secret and then concatenates the digest. Okay? And that's what gets sent across the insecure medium. It could be many steps, it could be many people, it could be on paper, it could be Morse code, it could be phone call, who knows, radio. But this is the danger, right? We do not know if the message is harmed in any way as it moves across this medium. Okay? So then what we do is we receive the message. Right? We don't know if it's a good message or a bad message. So we see that it's a message and it has a digest on the end of the message, and we split that out. We split the digest out and we hold on to the digest separately. Okay? And now we have the message minus the digest. And so then what we do is we add the secret back on, because only Annie and us know the secret. Right? And Annie and us know the secret. We all know how to do SHA-1, and so we take this message and we run it through SHA-1, and we get a digest that we've computed locally. This is the received digest, that's the local digest. And then we compare, and we say, this is great. That must have came from Annie. And we know that it came from Annie, even if it came through a dangerous set of steps, and we can't trust any of the people that transported the message. They're all untrustworthy. But we know that no matter what happened, that originally, at that moment, Annie did this. Okay? Annie made this digest, because without knowing the word Santa, there is nothing. And this could be like megabytes of data. And this is a real tiny, 40-character thing here. The digest is small, the message is large. So you can't go backwards to get it. There's no backwards here. Now, if you can steal the secret from Annie, then all bets are off, of course. So we have to assume that Annie's okay. And that, Annie was not compromised like in James Bond movies, for example. Where I was trying to get the secret from the good guy. Okay, so let's go and do this again, right? So here we go. We want to send the eat more Ovaltine. And the secret's Santa. And so we do the same thing, and we end up with that, and then she concatenates it, and this is all done, in Annie's bedroom and secret thing, and then she sends it. Okay, she sends it to us, but a diabolical courier says, I have a thing about Ovaltine, and I'm going to change the more to less. So I'm going to change this message to be eat less Ovaltine, right? So eat less Ovaltine. Bad. Evil. I don't know how to draw evil. I'm a terrible artist. Can't draw evil. So some untrusted courier has changed the word more to less. So we receive a thing that says, and we don't know, right? We didn't see the courier. They was carrying it in a box. Who knows what they did? But they changed it. They gave us a new copy. So we received this message from an untrusted medium. There's our untrusted medium. And it is our job to decide if we really think it came from Annie or not. So what we do is just like we did before. We break the message and the digest into pieces. And then we add the known secret to the end of it. Right? So we've added the known secret to the end of it right here. Then we run it through the SHA-1 calculation, and you can take, there we go, and go ahead and try this if you want. Maybe you have this up in a separate window, SHA-1.php. Put eat less Ovaltine Santa in, and you will get a different signature. Because you change even a single character, and SHA-1 will give us a different digest. That's cryptographic hashes in action, right? Even the tiniest change in megabytes of data will change the cryptographic hash. That's the beauty of SHA-1 and MD5 and SHA-256 and the others. There is no match. So we know that this message either did not come from Annie or was modified in transit. So we can tell the difference, and we do not have to trust the medium. Right? Okay. So let's see what we got coming up next here. Okay, so here is the encryption technique, and let's just stop and let you do one of these on your own. And say that we've got two messages from Annie, and I want you to stop and I want you to calculate. Santa is the secret. Okay, Santa is the secret, and I want you to tell me if free cookies or free candy actually came from Annie or not. One of them is a valid message from Annie, and the other is not a valid message from Annie. Okay? So I want you to take a moment, use the SHA-1 calculator, and I want you to try to figure out which of these is valid and which of these is not valid. Okay? Give you a minute. Okay. One last chance before we do the reveal. Okay, here we go. So, here comes a message from an insecure medium, free cookies. With that as the message digest, we got the other one, free candy, with that as the message digest. So what we do is we take off the digest and add the word Santa to each one. And then we run the SHA-1 on each one. And then we get the two SHA-1s. Here's the one and here's the two. And then what we do, most importantly, is we compare them with the received SHA-1. And when you compare them with the received SHA-1 or the received message digest or the received message signature, you see right away that one is good and one is bad. It's as simple as that, right? One of these is good, and one of these is bad. So digital signatures are actually really surprisingly simple and surprisingly easy to do without a lot of complex technology. The only complex technology in here is really the clever mathematics that makes these cryptographic hashes work effectively. The simple concatenation of a secret. Now you want your secrets to be kind of longer than this and more random than that, but ultimately the notion of a digital signature is actually a simple and rather elegant and beautiful notion that really leverages this notion of cryptographic hashes in a really cool manner. So that kind of sums up our first half lecture, where we really talk more about the techniques of both integrity and confidentiality, but we've done it all with a secret key, right, where we have the same key, we have a moment where we're together in a secure manner and we exchange the code book, whether it's Annie or or the Caesar or whatever, where we know what the shift is, right? So every pair of communicating people or systems needs a key. Now, in the internet, with everybody buying from everybody else and using credit cards, it's just not practical. You just could not have a secret key for Amazon. I guess it kind of works for the password. And that's different. We'll get to that in a second. The password doesn't solve everything, because then you would have to actually visit Amazon to get your password set up. And so the problem is we have to use an insecure medium to establish the first secret, as it were. And so it just was never going to work. So we need a different approach for the internet, and that's what we're going to talk about in the next lecture. Okay? See you then.